Whether you're a new real estate investor just taking down your first property or an experienced veteran with thousands of units under your belt, operating your multifamily deal is the make or break point for building wealth. Welcome to this property operations mini-series, part of the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. This mini-series is hosted by my friend Jack Petrick and of course by me, Agostino Pintus, the host of Bulletproof Cashflow. In this mini-series, we'll cover what you do after you take down that deal and what it's going to take to become a successful property owner that you want to be. So let's go ahead and get into the show. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us in this mini series on property management. I have my good friend Jack Petrick on as well. And many people forget that when they're getting into this business, we're entrepreneurs, right? We're taking investor money or even potentially your own. You're putting it into a deal to produce more cash. Guess what? You're a business owner. You're an entrepreneur now. That's what you're doing. And a big part of what we've covered so far, everything from management to lease ups to contractors to materials, all these different things, it's about managing your cost of goods, right? But another big part of what you have to do as an entrepreneur, as any business owner should be trying to do, is raise income. What do you do to raise the income of that asset? Whether it's through rents, whether it's through offering different features like valet trash, for instance, including utilities or whatever the case may be, maybe instituting some sort of utility payback type system. But I know Jack, you're really big on employing some of these income tricks. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you've been doing.
Absolutely. The first thing I like to start off with is understanding the most simple calculation you need to understand in multifamily, and understanding how these small adjustments have a profound impact on the value of the building. So I'm going to pull up my calculator on my phone here real quick, and let's say we go through a property and we let's say we can raise rents $50 a month. And let's say we got a 20 unit building. So it'd be $50 a month times $50 times 20 units is $1,000 per month. We'll multiply that by 12 months. That's $12,000 a year. So I'm going to take that amount of income gain. I'm going to divide it by the cap rate of the market. So it's not the cap rate of what your investment is, it's the market cap rate. So we're going to go to brokers, lenders, to find that information out. So I work with Chris Litzler, Pinnacle Finance out of Cleveland, amazing broker, lending broker. I work with a lot of, so if I were to call him up and ask, what's the cap rate of, such and such market, he would give me a pretty close range. So let's just say for this example, we're in a market that's a 7 cap. So take $12,000 of income increase divided by 1 second here, my calculator messed up. So $12,000 divided by 0.07. So divide by 0.07. So we just increased the value of the building $171,428. So that's the part that gets exciting. So because all I buy is value add opportunities, the properties that I buy are valued based upon the net operating income they produce. So income minus expenses is NOI. So I'm only looking at properties that have inefficiencies. Either the occupancy is low, the rents are low, there's poor management, absentee owners, deferred maintenance, or other issues. There's a reason why the income's low. And I'm looking for a property that I can increase the income. So the first, biggest, most logical thing is raising rents. The only way we can raise rents is by providing a nicer product. People will pay more money for a new car than a used car. They'll pay more for, new clothes than used clothes, and all the way down the gamut. People will pay more for something nice. So when I'm buying a property, there's been a lot of times I've been able to push the rent higher and create the comps in the market because I have a really nice product. When I'm evaluating and underwriting a property, I'm not evaluating that I'm going to hit top market. I'm kind of figuring I'm going to be somewhere about here, but I'm trying to push for this. And oftentimes I've been able to because we're providing a nice product. So depending on what you buy, if you buy something that's been, it's 30, 40 years old, original kitchens, bathrooms, carpet, flooring, typically in my market in the Midwest, I can typically bump those rents couple $100 if we do a full renovation. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. If I get into a market or if I get into a deal where it's more cosmetic rehabs, typically I can bump the rents $100 a month, but I have to put money into the property. But the first thing that's really important to understand is that formula. And that same thing goes for expenses. But on the income side, we figure out our annual income divided by the market cap rate. That's how much we're going to increase the value of the property. So if I can improve the value of the property, X amount of dollars, then what is it going to cost me to do it? Then I can make that decision. Is that worth it?
Right.
We talked about some other income streams. Pets are a big income stream. So again, let's look at that real quick. Let's look at how we affect the value of the building. Let's say if I've got a 16-unit property, if we were to have $25 a month times 8 tenants, that's $200 per month times 12 months, $2,400 divided by 0.07. I increase the value of the building $34,000. So that's a decision you do. Valet trash, you talked about, is another great service where you put your trash on set days outside and a maintenance guy would take that out. That would be a great income source. Application fees are an income source. Renter's insurance are an income source. Early termination fees are an income source. If you take a look at, so let's say if you sign up to look at offering memorandums for large deals, 200, 300 unit deals, especially in A-class market properties, you can sign up, you can have an offer memorandum downloaded pretty quickly. Take a look on the income side of that offering memorandum when you take a look at the T12, the trailing 12. Sometimes you'll see upwards of 25 line items of different lines of income these properties are utilizing for ideas. There's a tremendous amount of things that you can do. That's not saying that you can always execute that on every deal, but if somebody else is doing it, like R&D is rip off and duplicate in this business. If somebody else is having success with it, like they got the idea from somebody else and you get the idea from them. So, assigned parking, do you have the needs where you can, I've known some guys that have made a crazy amount of income because they've said, assigned parking. Now it creates some headaches if somebody parks in there at 2 a.m, but if you can increase the income and value of the property enough to justify it, it's worth dealing with it.
That's right. That's right.
So
and of course, but we're going to get into this later, but increasing the overall valuation, just as you point out on a deal, it's going to impact when you go to do the refi later on down the road, right? So as you're going in, you're improving the property, you're driving up rents, and yeah, I mean, it might seem it's only $50. Who cares with $50? Hey, take that $50, multiply it by 20 times, increase your NOI. You send it over to the bank. The bank's going to be like, wow, this thing's improving. And not to mention too, it's also a reflection of you as an operator too. So they're more likely to get you the loan because they really like you. So, and we're going to get into that later. But, I would say that when it comes to raising the property income, and you touched on this earlier, you have to watch how much you are doing to that asset. Like, so for instance, like, do you really want to put quartz in the kitchens if all the neighbors have Formica, you know what I mean? So it's like, do you really want to put in that in the fancy backsplash and all that stuff in a C-class asset that, may end up getting ripped up,
I'm heavy for quality, but for over improving, there is a loss of return on investment once you hit it. So just to expand upon your point, I had a 16-unit building. For the kitchens, we were able to sand, prime, and paint the cabinets. We put high definition Formica in, luxury vinyl floor, tile backsplash. It looked amazing. Very minimal investment, but because of that, we got a significant increase with it, but it's all cosmetic. If we would have went the other route of ripping out the cabinets, putting in new cabinets, putting in granite, new appliances, it wouldn't have looked that much better, but the cost would have been 6 times higher cost. There's no ROI. There's no return on investment. So to your point, that's a big thing. You have to put quality in, but you can't over improve. That's absolutely right. Point.
That's right. And the best way to do that is a secret shop. So you start looking around, going to different similar assets in that neighborhood and see what they have. Now this is where you have to find a happy medium, because let's say it is only a 16 unit. And let's say, for instance, your guy is inexpensive enough and you get the materials inexpensive enough that you can put a backsplash in it. Then is it worth spending the extra time to get that improvement and crank up the rents that much more? I mean, that's more of an art than a science, it seems, but you really have to secret shop and figure that part out, right?
And I learned this lesson the hard way, because when I was building houses, there was a time I was building a spec house, and I'm trying to determine what does that buyer want. And when I was doing a bunch of house flips, it was the same thing. I had to renovate that house without having the buyer in mind, trying to do enough to attract them without over improving. So there was a lot of conceptions that I had to figure out the hard way. So oftentimes people are really big on stainless. I'll be honest with you, I don't really do stainless because it's so easy to show scratches and dents in it, and it's not necessary. When people come into a property, they're not going to just focus on staring at your refrigerator. They're not doing this, they're doing this. They're looking at the kitchen, the cabinets, the handles, the floor, the wall color, the flooring color, the living room. They're looking at the whole picture. So oftentimes, even when I was doing some properties, I'm getting really hung up because of the conception that everybody needs granite. High definition Formica is a fraction of the cost, and it looks just as good. I've never once have had somebody turn their nose against a high definition Formica that looks just like a Calberta marble in lieu of the real product. But the cost savings is staggering at it. So to go to your point, I know we're going off track here slightly, but it's in order to get the income, you have to have the product, but you have to make the right investment of materials, time, and labor to get that right product. Every property is going to provide different income opportunities, and you have to go there and you have to look. So I just closed a 123 unit deal. It's a 55 and older senior complex. And in this property, I've got a ton of additional rooms and stuff that I could rent out to like a home healthcare company and create some other sources of revenue on that. I have another property where we have a monster attic up there that if we were to build partition walls, we can create interior storage lockers in this enormous attic where we can drive additional revenue. So every property is going to have a different angle. That 123 unit that I bought, we've got a piece of property right up against the highway. Could I develop that to self-storage, or could I put a billboard up on it? So it's not always specifically tenant related income, which is going to be a big piece of it, but oftentimes there's other revenue sources you can bring into the property. And what we were just talking about, the effect on the NOI is where your money is being made. It's not so much the extra $1,000 a month. It's $12,000 a year divided by the cap rate is $170,000 increase in value. Then you go to refinance the property. Now you have cash coming back, or you're in a better position. And you're in a better position, you'll pay your investors back off.
That's right.
So you have a fiduciary responsibility when you have capital raised with investors to return their capital and to make the best financial decisions for their money. So whenever I have capital raised and they're in my deals, that investor's capital is a much higher priority, and their needs trump my needs. And I have to do everything I can to get a return on their capital and the return of their capital. So these decisions are being done to benefit our investors, secondly me.
That's right. And one thing we have not touched on is Airbnb. So Airbnb has become another way to generate money, because for most people, they're, say for a typical house in Cleveland, might rent out for $800, 3-bedroom house, right? If some people are getting in the right location, they're tripling that money doing Airbnb. And people are applying that same model to the multifamily space. Now, the thing to watch out for is that it might work. A lender, a normal bank, might look at that income and be okay with it. They might be okay with it. Fannie, Freddie, not so much. They will not be okay with it. So that's something to be aware of, is that, lenders they love to see that income. Airbnb is a great way to do that. You have to have a good location, and that requires a whole different layer of management on top of it. The good thing is that very rarely are those places beat the hell the same way that a regular property is. But on the other side of the coin, it requires a different level of touch. Now you're in the hospitality business as opposed to the landlording business, which is two different types of businesses. And there are companies out there that'll do that, and they'll do it very reasonably. But you have to be in the right location too, right?
Sure.
Yeah. We're actually looking at doing one of these assets like this. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, it'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. But all right,
That's
guys.
awesome.
But thank you so much for joining us on this one. If you have any questions, go to bulletproofcashflow.com. You're going to see a little widget there. Hit that button, and you can ask a question right there. A little pop-up window will come up. You hit that record button, and you can speak your question directly into the website. And if we use your question on the air, we will send you a free gift. Totally cool gift. You're going to love it. All right. So always want to hear from you. Leave a comment, rate the show. If you're on iTunes, if you're on YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe too. Don't forget to do that. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And we've got so much more ground to cover. I'll talk to you soon. All right, guys.